mean, the original idea was my partner, right? And, it's funny because we were just going over this the other day, but the real true idea was he was in jail, and I remember him telling me a story about, I mean, this is going really far back, but he told me a story that there was this guard, this like really goofy guard who was telling him what to do. And the guy was just a goofball. And the guy was kind of ordering him around. And he had this like moment of clarity where he was like, why am I in a position where this guy is telling me what to do? So from there, he was like, I'm going to do something when I get out of here. And he had another moment where he had seen a tattoo on someone's back really early in the morning in Venice, and it said born and raised in Venice. So when he came out, he was like, I want to do something called born and raised. And there's a story he told me. I knew all the players. I knew the guy that he was talking about because I grew up in the same place. I knew who he was talking about. I knew that guy. And I knew exactly what he was talking about, being up all night, all that shit. And that was his idea. And he tracked down Eclipse, who is the leader of AWR and MSK. And, well, the start of MSK, I think GK is the leader of MSK, but I could be wrong, guys. Don't get mad at me here. But he also ran Seventh Letter. So Sponto linked up with Eclipse, and they basically cranked out 2 to 3 designs. And one was the native head, and it said gentrification is genocide. And at that time, I was exiting apparel and directing. So I'm making music videos. I had an apparel company, and I was like so thoroughly just like over it. I was like, I made this decision. I was like, I never want to produce anything that can be warehoused. That was what I said. I was like, I never want to produce any more goods that will be stored. I was like, I want to make everything I do is going to be an idea. It's going to be digital or a flat painting or something. So that's how I came into it. He approaches me through Eclipse, and Eclipse was like, yo, Sponto's looking for you. I'm like, that doesn't sound good. So I knew who Sponto was. He knew who I was from the neighborhood. And he is approaching me, and I was like, we sat down and had coffee. Before we had coffee, actually, I was at a trade show, and I saw at the trade show the sticker for Born and Raised. And I was like, I saw all these fucking stickers, and I saw the Born and Raised sticker, and I was like, oh shit. That's fucking hard. Like that was actually like, it had a message, the whole thing. And so it was in my consciousness, and then he approaches me. We sat down, we had coffee, and, I'm talking to him and like taking everything in. And he's telling me all the things he's doing and showing me like the t-shirt he had and all these things. And my pitch to him was, because I didn't want to get involved with apparel, I go, look, you have access to a world that no one has access to, and in a world that no one really knows anything about. So I was like, let me shoot a film for you. And this is like 11 years ago. So at that time, content wasn't the monstrous like necessity it is now, right? It was just the beginning. It was like just people were still putting together like websites to sell shit, I think, like it wasn't fully DTC, all that shit yet. So in my mind, I was like, A, as a filmmaker, I wanted to make a film, but B, I was like, I think this is where things are going to go. Like content is like going to be, a full commodity and a necessity. So I was like, well, let's make a movie. Let's make a short, let's make a Born and Raised film. And he was kind of like, not really sure. And I was like, trust me, like, this is something I know how to do. So based on my pedigree, making music videos and stuff, he was like into it. And I remember, this is the funniest thing. I was like, he's like, how much? I'm like, I can get it done for $3,000. And he's like, $3,000? Like pissed. I'm like, trust me. He's like, and $3,000 it's a joke, right? Yeah. Like it's nothing. So I got with my DP, this dude, Andrew Wheeler, who was helping me shoot my music videos at the time. Very fucking talented, brilliant DP. Shout out to Wheels. And me, him, and Wheels and Omar, my dog, got in the car and we started shooting. And we shot a bunch of B-roll, and then we shot this day in Venice at his family house. And it was just like, it was crazy. It was just, his dad, they hadn't talked in a while. His dad came in town from Memphis. His dad and his mom hadn't talked. His dad's a blues musician. and we shot basically like slice of life Venice. We shot it on a red, black and white, and it was dark and it was beautiful, and it was just like, it was just one of those days where, we're on set being his family home, and like, it was like the hair on our arms was standing up, like his dad didn't have a song prepared. So I grab his dad and I go in the other room, and like I wrote a blues song like really quickly, cause like when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of music stuff, just fucking around. But I wrote this like, blues is a very simple structure. I wrote this like song, and because of the energy and all these things, I was able to write this thing in like 10 minutes. So I write the song. His dad fucking performs it flawlessly, like one take, and we record live, like we mic'd it there. So that song is the track for the film, and everything that Born and Raised, how it all started, is in that film. It's like really gritty, dark, just kind of like, the base for what Born and Raised became. And I made the film, and then, he's like, you gotta do this business with me. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I was like, I don't want to be in the clothing business. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, I was still like, once I made the film, I was like, I didn't know, but I was hooked in, like I was like, my brain was just now like focused on this thing. And I would hit him, be like, yo, I got a t-shirt idea. Here's what you should do. And then I'd be like, wait a minute, I know how to do this. So I would do it. And I'd be like, check out this design. And I kept doing it. And then one day I was like, I guess I'm doing it, like it just happened. And so I just basically sat down with him and I was like, all right, let's figure this out. And we made an agreement. And I was like, look, you're the actor, I'm the director, and Born and Raised is the movie. That was and like that was the context of how we're going to work together. And, and that, of course, that relationship changed as we've gone on, because he became much more than that. He came into his own later on after all the things that we had to go through. But, so I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I built basically like a structure for us to enter the industry. One thing is, I made, this wooden shoe box is Born and Raised. I made a bunch of these wooden shoe boxes, and in those shoe boxes we put like a collaborative shoe we did, a handball, some t-shirts, some stickers. Some people got weed, some people got pills, and tobacco, which is like a native offering. And we made these boxes, and we just started sending them out to people, like, yo. And my thing was like, hey, politely, we're coming in here to fuck shit up, but we're coming here like, like something he used to always say is like, if you enter someone's house, you want to wipe your feet off, like. So we sent these boxes out, and I got the legal Zoom, the LLC, and built a structure. And we had, him, and he had another, one of his best friends come in, which is Murph. Murph came in, dropped a shoebox full of cash on us. And we started out of my apartment, and that was all in the end of 2013. And 2014, we launched officially in Union, and we debuted the second movie there, the second short film. I called it a movie, it's not a movie. The second short film, which is called The Town I Live In, and and we made the zine. Like the energy around something when you're starting is kind of boundless, because there's nothing. You just create, you just fucking ether. Like there's no margins, we don't know what the fuck. We're just like making the shit, trying to flip it. But the amount of energy that went into it was like, he was 100% full in from jump, and I think that when he came out, I think his focus was like, he wanted this thing to work. He wanted to get notoriety for this thing, and that energy is like, he had more energy than anyone I ever met. So I remember we did the party at Union. We tore down everything in Union. We painted the walls with graffiti. We hung up the zines. We had a little party there for the film. And, there was a second thing that happened where we're screening the film, And I look over, this woman next to me is like crying. I'm like, holy shit, like this shit's resonating, And I knew there, I was like, this is real. Like this is a real fucking thing, And I knew also like we were entering a market that at the time didn't have anything. Like there were waves of what we did in the 90s, and we were very referential of the 90s, but like at that time, streetwear, whatever you want to call it, was not what it is now.
Yeah.
There was nothing like what we were doing, at that exact moment. And we didn't invent it, but we were at that time the first company, I believe, doing that kind of like, it was very raw. Like he was out, Also, I have to say too that right around when this happened, right, he goes to Palm Springs. He comes back. He said he felt weird. He comes back. He goes to the hospital, and to get checked out. And then he calls me, and he's like, "I have cancer." And I'm like, "What are you talking?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, And what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, no." He's like, "I just got checked up, and this nurse came in and like just threw a pamphlet at me and was like, 'You have cancer.'" I was like, "Holy shit!" So he had lymphoma, and I had another conversation with him, and I was like, "Well, I got a choice to make here. I can either tell you good luck because we just started this thing, or I can make a decision to see this through." And obviously that's what I did. And we also talked about everything. We're like, how do we want to deal with this? Do we want to like keep it private, or do we want to put it all out in the front? And he's like, put it in the front. Like, let's just fucking let it be known. So then he's in the fucking hospital. I'm pulling up, and we're doing photo shoots in the hospital. I'm bringing my computer. I'm going like, he's fucked up, And yeah, I'd never experienced anything like that. I never had anyone that was next to me get sick like that in a real way. And he was sick for a long time. He was really, I don't think he got out of the woods for like 5 years,
Wow.
And I could be messing up that timeline, but I don't think he was still like, even, I mean, he was just fully out of it, I think towards the end, but yeah, he was really sick. He would go down for like weeks, but the thing about him was he was irrepressible. Like he was also like at the same time climbing on billboards, fucking tagging Sponto Two-Tone while he had cancer, like he would not, he told me, and I don't know if he told me this or if I'm pretty sure he told me, I don't think I saw this, but he was telling me that like he was in the hospital and he's looking in the mirror and he's just like beating his chest as hard as he could and being like, he's like, fuck this. Like he just was like, I'm not going to fucking go down. And I remember he told me that. I'm like, you're going to be all right. Because I think so much of that stuff is like mental,
yeah.
And if you can fight, like, which he's a fighter, obviously, like, you can get through it. But if you give up, maybe it won't, Anyway, so that was the beginning. And we started off like with a bang, and then he has cancer, and then it's like, and I like, we had like one employee, shout out Carlos, and we had an office in Man Face's loft. We split his apartment in half and took half for our office, and it was fucking crazy, like I definitely, like I was sober when we started this thing and I relapsed. So then now I'm loaded and running this company, and he's sick, but we never stopped. I also am very similar, and like I'm very stubborn, like I won't let go of something that I'm committed to, and we kept it going. And like we also, not only did we keep it going, we kept evolving and growing. Even with these kind of things holding us back, we still were progressing. So like we were down a man. I was not at my best, and still, like I think that the whole time too, I was like, because he'd never done it before. And I was like, you don't understand. We got this. Like, our shit is fucking raw. There's nothing like this right now. And we pushed through. And, fast forward 10 years and, you guys know what happened.
Yeah.
So, and, it's been like, it's, also like in the middle of that thing, Murph passed away. And then Sponto passed away, and his dad passed away a couple months before he did, in a very similar fashion, which is just crazy. I mean, it's and like also, I also at the end of it too, at the end of that trajectory of 10 years, it's like, partnerships are fucking hard. You're married. I remember telling him again, like, this is a marriage. Like, we're gonna see each other more than you see your loved ones. You're in an office with them all the time plus, and it was crazy. It was intense. And after he passed, right before he passed, I was like, I need a break. Like, I'm gonna go. I need to work. I had some projects I wanted to pursue. I had some things I was writing, some things I was developing. I was like, I need to like step away from this. And I felt indebted to the company and to what we had discussed in the beginning to get it to a certain point, because I always had these other things I was trying to do. And, he wanted to buy back, his family home and all these things. And that happened. And I felt like after that point, I was like, okay, well, those things happened. And we got to a point where this thing is like functioning, not only functioning, but thriving. We also dealt with COVID too, right? Like, COVID happened. So COVID happens. We had to restructure our entire strategy. There's been a lot of stuff, but I always knew the brand's strong, like I knew the brand's strong. So like, 10 years later, there's a brand, there's a logo that is like synonymous with a bunch of stuff culturally. And it means a lot to a lot of people, and yeah, so I had basically decided to step down. I didn't give up my ownership, but I was like, I need to fucking chill out. Like, it was, and I had a bunch of other stuff going on in my personal life, and I was like, I need a break. I need to like do my thing. And I'd step down, and I gave them, I gave everyone my like 3 months. I was like, here's my 3 months. I replaced myself. I was like, here's a new art director that, he signed off on, that he loved. And then I left, and then he passed. And then I was like, fuck, and these kind of things, you have to act fast. And I just was like, I don't know who else can do this, and I decided to come back. And I came back, and it's, and it's like, it's not, none of this, nothing in this process from fucking, from the minute we launched has been easy. It has been a uphill fight, but there's something fun about that. And something about, I always talk about like the beginning of a company when there's nothing on the line except for everything, like there's no, like, it doesn't exist. You're just like, and like, you're not making money, and you're just fucking going, and there's a drive there that's so different from when you're dealing with like margins and salaries and all these other things. It's a whole different thing, where it's like when you're afloat, it's a different energy. But when you're starting shit out, like we did whatever the fuck we wanted to do, we shot, like, I was talking to the guys too. Like, I look back at old campaigns, and I'm like, damn, these campaigns are sick. It's because we were out there just shooting people around the neighborhood. I'd grab a point and shoot, and fucking shoot some kids by the lifeguard tower, and like do this thing. And like, it was just, like there was no real structure other than keep going and be consistent, so yeah. Now it's like, the thing that it was can never be that, like it can never be, no one can do what he did. No one can replace him. He had his very special skill set, and, we would always butt heads, but we'd always agree that like when we're in tune, there's like, we're unstoppable, and that part of it's gone. And like, it's been, when I come back, I have to look at everything and be like, what does this mean going forward, And the idea obviously is still there and it's built, but it's like has to be done differently because I'm never going to I wouldn't even try. I can't fill the shoes. I don't want to, and I don't know how. So like, so it's like, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. And like, also like there's people in this company that, have been here for, Darius has been here maybe is I don't know, 9 years, maybe, he's got mortgage kids, like, people have families. Like this is a real thing. There's a bunch of people with their lives, not their lives, but their livelihoods on the line in connection to this. They can get other jobs too, but like they're invested. People have put their heart and soul into this thing. There's a whole bunch of things going on behind the, social media veil that lend itself to the structure of a company. Like, there's a world here, you know what I mean? And, yeah, it's just, and it's interesting too, because like, Born and Raised became something that from the inside, it's hard to see, because I don't always like, I have a very humble view of what it is. Like I know it's strong, I know it's a brand, but like I'm also shocked too when people identify with it who I think wouldn't, and that makes me feel good, like that makes me feel like, and a lot of that, I mean, with him in the front, like he was one of the most active people ever. He was outside all the time. He would spend his days driving around, talking to people, politicking in every sector, from the highest to the lowest. And that part of this can't exist. And there's no one I can't do that shit. It's not who I am. That's why I was behind the scenes. So now I'm not so much, but behind the scenes anymore because I just by the fact of where it's all at. But like, yeah, man, I don't know. It's been crazy. So like, and also Born and Raised like was an enmeshment of our interests. He came from gang life. I came from graffiti. I work as a director and an artist, and and he was working as like the person who was kind of the face of it, and then he started getting really into like designing photo shoots, art directing photo shoots. Like he really started to embrace all the things in it that for 5 years he couldn't even really, his brain didn't work right. He would always complain. He'd be like, I can't think straight. I'm like, you're good. Just show up, It
was like from the chemo.
The chemo, yeah. Chemo fucking brutal. Chemo, and yeah, he would pop up, be running around, and he'd go get chemo and be fucking cooked, So yeah, that's the kind of what was the question? What's Born and Raised?
It was the early origins.
Oh, thank you. That's the early origins, and it's funny because we're like looking at all of that, and it's fresh in my mind right now, So, yeah.
Why did he reach out to you? So he thought of the idea while he was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
He comes out and he reaches out to you to try to make it happen with you. What was your relationship like before that? And why did he reach out to you? That's one. And then two, you said you didn't want to do clothing. You didn't want to do apparel.
Yeah.
Why didn't you want to do clothing and apparel?
I mean, he reached out to me because we grew up in the same place, and I was aware of him. He's much younger, a different generation. So like, I remember seeing him. I was like, that's a bad kid right there, And I'd see him, just running amok, and like he knew who I was just from like, it's a small place, and I was a graffiti writer, and like that's the guy that went out and did some stuff. I had a clothing company, and I had pushed out. So I think that's why he wanted to connect with me, and like I think also he knew inherently that like I knew the story he was trying to tell. Because I grew up there too, I went to the same high schools, all that shit, and like different track, I was really more obsessed with graffiti than anything else, but same place. And then why did I not want to get involved with apparel? Like I had started this company. I made all my mistakes in that company. I did everything wrong. I listened to people that I shouldn't have listened to. I gave up. It was good because it really influenced this, but I let things kind of fuck with me aesthetically when people come in who were really successful and be like, you should do this. And like by the time they were coming in with that, I was so burnt out. I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I learned that lesson. Don't listen to anybody. Listen to people you trust who know what the fuck you're talking about. But if they don't know what you're talking about and know where you come from and can't understand that, it's like someone telling you how to like write graffiti or fucking do jiu-jitsu that doesn't know anything, So that was that. And yeah, the reason why the apparel thing is I was burnt. Like I spent in that company, I remember when I was starting it, I disappeared for a whole year. No one saw me. I was in a factory. I worked on the factory. I worked like, there was a factory floor where they made shirts. I was above it in this like office above the factory. So it's like the fumes are coming, and I'm in that factory and I'm like fucking tweaking out on everything. Like I was designing the fucking buttons, and like when I designed a button, I would make like the most embellished button. Like I over designed, like I did so much shit. And like that attention to detail is good if you have restraint and and I didn't learn that lesson yet, and I think that it was messy, and also I just didn't like the idea of all this stuff, like this, that I was responsible for like all this shit, like all this material, all this fabric, all these garments, like that really fucked with me,
What do you mean, like on a planetary thing, or
not even on some ecological shit, just the idea of creating more shit.
Yeah.
That there's a warehouse somewhere that has all these things. And like, also probably was because it didn't work, like for me, like I didn't like it. I wasn't proud of it, and that fucked with me. So it put a bad taste in my mouth. And also at the same time too, like what I really had wanted to do the whole time is like, I want to tell stories and I want to direct, and I just hadn't, it wasn't that I didn't have I just hadn't made that leap yet. And I did in the other place, in the other company. And, I basically, it was like, took a budget for something and made a music video, and it was amazing. The experience was amazing. The video was for the first video was great. And that blew my mind. I was like, fuck, something I want to do since I was a kid, watching fucking, Rap City and shit, and, whatever the MTV was one also. Anyways, but yeah, that I just didn't, not ecologically, I just didn't want to make shit. And and now I've made a lot more shit, but at least I'm proud of it,
Yeah.
like at least I feel, and also there's something really here. Like there's messaging, there's a story, there's a whole fucking thing, there's a whole ethos here. So
Yeah, well, that's something too I wanted to mention, was like when you look at what you do, and it's like with Born and Raised, you just get the clear message when you look at it. You see like graffiti roots, you see like families, you see like LA, you see neighborhoods, you see culture, you see celebration of culture that maybe could go overlooked in another brand or in another company. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of, it's really like who you are and who Sponto is, and like, all that. It's just who you guys are your whole life. Like last time we talked, you talked about how you got into graffiti, and when you got into graffiti, that like consumed your whole shit. That was like, I don't want to do anything else other than paint as much as I can, get as good as I can. And, you got down with AWR and the people you got down with, and that went down that way. And that kind of funneled into Born and Raised, and is still very much so the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you think about Born and Raised, this is interesting. The influences on Born, like we had deep influences, right? Like a lot of companies, they don't really come from anywhere other than they want to make a product. But this is like so much deeper than that. And everything that we did was a part of something else that was influenced by us growing up where we did. Like the idea of Born and Raised is really just about like the city and the culture, whatever that may be. It's not specifically like aimed at any demographic. It's lean certain ways, but like that was never the point, right? And, for example, what Gents of Desire is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Gents of Desire is like this club, right? Alexis Ross, Finn, and I, you know, and it's kind of like, I can't explain really what it is, but let's just say it's a gentleman's club. Okay. And that the whole idea of Gents of Desire was based on just like referencing LA culture, the tattooing, the memorial sweatshirts, all those things. And there's a logo that says Gents of Desire. And before Sponto and I met, he had seen that logo and he did a version that said Born and Raised, Born X Raised, right? This is before we even connected. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, oh, but that also, that goes back to Rocksteady shit in New York. That goes back to in LA, memorial tees, iron on felt letters, all that stuff. Like there's a history there. That's where Alexis got it from. Sponto grew up in it. It made sense for him to adopt it. When we got together, I was like, you should be in Gents. So we put him in Gents of Desire too. On top of it, I was like, let's just seal the deal. But that Gents of Desire and Alexis Ross has influenced so much of Born and Raised. Like his drawings, early stuff that he would just give me. He would just do a drawing. He did one for us the other day, right? Good friend of mine, love that person, and he had a heavy influence. AWR and MSK had a heavy influence in like what I do. And just graffiti in general, even with Sponto too. Like Sponto's like, there's graffiti and gang culture. And then he took it to this other thing where he started just bombing his name, not a neighborhood, just putting his name up, and it was a very common, like the threads were just, parallel. And like the whole thing also on top of all of that too is like, growing up in Venice, like there's just like there's a punk current in everything. It's just there. And we had that ethos. It was like, by any means, let's get this thing done and we'll do it by hand, And that was how, it started. But everything here is you can trace it back. Like I've never told the story about the Gents logo and all that shit, But, everything can be traced back to something somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's what it gives it its authenticity. Because if nothing were authentic,
Yeah, I think that's what people resonate with. You can just feel the authenticity. It is all there for a purpose. It's not just like, this is cool, so that's why we do it. It's like, this is who we are, so that's why we do it.
Yeah, like everything was, like even down to, like Sponto worked as a rigger, so he's in the union, right? It's blue collar job, right? Like when I was younger, I worked as a plumber's assistant, work construction. Like there was that filters through Born and Raised, right? That idea, and it's not even on purpose. Like it just was there. Like it was just kind of like the things that we're attracted to with that kind of ethos, right? Like reaching out to whoever was around us to shoot, or like I would just be walking around and see some kid and I'd be like, yo, let me talk to you. I have a company. Can I shoot you? Just be some kid. And it wasn't some kid that it was like pretty. It was like some kid that had fucking, like, perfect example. This kid named Andrew. I saw him at 7-Eleven in Los Feliz. Little redhead dude. And he was this tall and he was trying to fucking riz this like barista who was like 2.5 feet taller and like, probably 8 years older than him. And I see that and I'm like, fuck, this kid is crazy. And I grab him. I'm like, oh, let me talk to you. And like, we took that kid, we shot him. I made this like little documentary about him that I never put out. We shot him for a bunch of lookbooks. He passed away too, randomly. I found out through the grapevine. He ended up getting locked up and he died. I don't know how it happened, but I lost touch with him, but I heard through the grapevine that he passed away. And, it's a lot of people that were adjacent or involved with the brand have passed away because of the lifestyles that they led, and because those were people that were accessible to us, and those are the people that I find interesting, and that Sponto's, those were his people, and I feel like that idea for Born and Raised is like really a big part of it, because I think people who love the brand see themselves in the people that we shoot, or maybe they see themselves in like the Sponto and I don't know, maybe they see as like, oh, that dude was a fuck up, and we've put it all out Like here's what it is. Like, you know, I'm pretty frank about everything. And I think people appreciate that because it's like, you know, it's almost for me to a fault because I almost am too, you know, I should be a little more full of shit, maybe be better, but don't know how.
When it comes to all the loss that has gone down around Born and Raised with people,
Yeah.
just people passing and adjacent people passing, people who like, you know, it's just kind of all over the place, like you said, because of the lifestyles that you're living. It's like associated with gang culture, it's associated with graffiti, it's associated with a bunch of things that come with a bunch of things. And then before you know it, just one by one, people start passing. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that that's happened and when it's happening and continuing going, like continuing even doing this? It's like it's all changed in a way. There's still, you know, their message is still there, but it's changed in the sense of the people involved, and you're still there, like, you know, holding that flag.
Uh, I'm not good at dealing with that shit. In that I don't deal with it. My only answer is to just like push. Like I'm really not. I don't. My brain just clicks and goes like, okay, well, what's the solution here? So I don't know how to properly mourn people. I don't really know how that works. You know, of course I care and like it hurts, you know, but there's the hurt and then it's like, well, what's next? And I haven't had time. Everything is just, you know, moves so fast, you know, and like we're on this fucking treadmill and it's just going and going and going and going. So it's like I either hop off and go sit in the fucking woods for a month and cry, or I don't know. I don't even know if I have that in me. I don't know. I don't. I'm not good at dealing with that shit. You know, like, yeah. I don't know. We had a buddy of ours pass that we played cards with, and I still don't understand. I still, even with Sponto too, like I still have dreams where he's alive. Or sometimes I talk to one of the guys. I'm like, I don't. Is this really like? Is this real? Like, it doesn't seem real because we had to keep going, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if there's probably a better way to handle it, but I don't know what it is.
How have things changed with running Born and Raised?
I mean, it's different. I think we're still finding our way, you know. It's a process. I mean, it's you know, it's changing that like the scope and focus has to be different. And I think that as a company, like, you know, at this point, decade in, like we're not young, you know, like, and I just look at it and like, how do we move forward? You know, what is the lever to push to, like, you know, because the whole purpose of the company is to grow. So how do we keep growing? You know, and like I have to be very analytical about that, and also listen to my gut about like what needs to happen. And also like I'm fallible, like I'm not, you know,
Yep.
I make mistakes, you know, and that's part of the process. The trick is like make the mistake and then fucking sit down, dissect it, you know, and that's what we do. Okay, that's fucked up. That didn't work. So where do we go now? What do we do now? And like that's my wheelhouse, you know. Like I remember before my first music video I shot, I went and saw this DP, this guy Wyatt, and I was like, "Hey man, what do you have any advice for me?" And he goes, "Yes." He goes, "Your job as a director is to put out fires. You're a firefighter." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That's not helpful." But then I get on set and I'm like, "Oh, my job is to fix everything that breaks," you know? And I apply that to everything because, you know, best laid plans, right? Shit fucking goes south all the time. So now what, right? That's it. Well, now what? This happened. You broke your leg. Okay, now how are we going to run the marathon now, you know? And that's kind of it. It's like, that's what you have. That's my, you know, that's how I respond. And it's not easy, you know, but it's not boring. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got a lot going on. It's also crazy too because when you guys started, there's probably way less clothing brands, way less people doing even something even in the same field, you know.
Yeah.
And now I think the accessibility is greater. So there's just more. There's just way more. And
A lot
then
of
with
noise.
Instagram and social media, there's just way more.
Yeah.
So people are creating more, which makes it, in a way, like it could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing because then it's hard to stand out. Or like even if you are doing some shit that's standing out, it's like it gets drained by the algorithm because someone follows 800 people. So like you only got so many seconds in a day to check what all those 800 people are doing. And if all 800 are staying busy, then like how the fuck do you look at all that and like remember what they're doing? And like it's so crazy, and it's interesting because people like you are still able to do shit like that, you know?
I have to be aware of our customer and the history. So I can't, like we'll try things and we look at it and we're like, what's the reaction to this? And like at the end of the day, like you can't fight City Hall, like this is a business. So the thing is too, is like interesting, like sometimes you try something and the reaction isn't good, but the sales are good, but even so, like nothing that I'm doing, like everything I'm doing is still, organic. It's like we have a meeting, we do a line, like what would be a good idea for this? I got an idea. We all talk. Okay, that's a good idea. Can we do that? Oh, we can't afford to do that. What if we did plan B? Well, let's try this. And so anytime that I'm involved in it, I'm going to try to make the best version of it. I'm going to make a short, and like also, make a short film, but even that too, right? Like maybe people don't want to see a short film. Maybe what they really want to see is a fucking 8-second clip of someone talking shit. I don't know. I mean, I do know. We're looking at it, right? Like, so you have to change with the times and adapt to the climate. And like, what is it? It's like, how are people being communicated with? What do people want from us? And then how do we give it to them? And then the other thing is like, how do we evolve visually? All of that stuff happening. And meanwhile, we're like fully repositioning a bunch of other things in the company and figuring out new lanes and new strategies. And the good news is like the fucking brand is built. The logo is done. It's solid. Like it's built. So we have a logo and that means something. So like in theory, you could take that logo and put it on a blender and that blender will sell because that's a born and raised blender. So that was the goal. And that was what's in my head the whole time, is like building the logo, and the brand equity is real.
Yeah.
So what I do know is that, and the same thing I knew in the beginning, it was like, it's legit. We just have to figure out how to apply it, and like, how do we move going forward? Like what does it look like? And again, like I got my skill set and I got my people, and I lean into what's around me. You know what I mean? Like, Ozzy pulls up. I'm like, Ozzy, what's up? Can you help us out with this thing? You got any ideas? Boom, boom. He goes, yeah, I got you. Like that's what it still is. It's always been that way. Like most of the people that we interact with are like homies, and they're just like, oh shit, I'll just call so-and-so. He knows how to do that. It's like, and it's still, like it's a fucking business, and the money still turns back. Like it ain't sweet. Like it's like, we don't, we're not like, yeah, it's big and it's a company, but like there's overhead, and it has to go right back into the machine. You know what I mean? So, like I'm not like, we're doing good, but we're not doing as good as people think we are. People, the idea of what Born and Raised is like this fucking, they put us on a pedestal with like other companies that have been around for 30 years that are making, upwards of $100 million a year or something. You know what I mean? Like that's not where we are. We're still, I think that we're a big, small company. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're just at the beginning.